The grand hall of the Zephyrian Imperial Palace stretched endlessly, its crystalline walls reflecting the light of 3 suns through massive windows. Delegates from across the galaxy had gathered for the most important peace summit in centuries. War had torn through star systems for decades, leaving entire worlds as smoking ruins. Princess Lyrelay of Zephyr lay crumpled behind a massive pillar, her silver blood pooling beneath her broken form. The attack had come from nowhere during the opening ceremony. Assassins had struck with weapons designed to kill slowly, painfully. Now she watched helplessly as beings from 100 different worlds walked past her hiding spot, their conversations echoing off the walls. Her throat burned as she tried to call for help, but only weak gasps escaped. The poison coursing through her veins made every breath agony. Her people, the Zephyrians, communicated through telepathic waves that rippled across their consciousness like music. But the toxin had severed those connections, leaving her trapped in silence. "Help me," she whispered in Standard Galactic, the common tongue used for diplomatic relations. A group of tall, blue-skinned Altarians walked past, their 6 arms gesturing as they discussed trade agreements. They glanced at her briefly, then continued walking. To them, she looked like any other injured servant caught in the crossfire. A delegation from the crystalline Quartzians approached next. Their bodies rang like wind chimes as they moved, creating beautiful melodies. Princess Lyrelay tried to sing their traditional greeting song, hoping they would recognize her royal status. But her voice came out as barely a croak. The Quartzians paused, tilted their geometric heads, then decided she was simply another casualty of war. They moved on. The poison spread deeper into her system. Her vision blurred as delegates continued to pass. Reptilian saurians with their golden scales caught the light as they slithered by. She reached out with one trembling hand, speaking their hissing language as best she could manage. They looked down at her with cold, ancient eyes, then continued their discussion about territorial disputes. Each species had their own problems, their own concerns. The galaxy was full of suffering. One more injured being among thousands seemed insignificant. Hours passed. Princess Lyrelay felt her strength fading as the toxin worked its way toward her heart. She had been trained in 17 languages. Educated in the customs of every major species in the galaxy, her whole life had been preparation for this moment, this summit where she would help forge peace between warring worlds. Now she would die here, forgotten and alone. The irony wasn't lost on her. She was Princess Lyrelay, heir to the throne of Zephyr, one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. Her people controlled the trade routes that connected distant star systems. Her father commanded fleets that could level planets. Yet here she lay, powerless and ignored. A new group approached. She had never seen beings like these before. They walked on 2 legs like many species. But something about them seemed different. They were shorter than most delegates, with pale or dark skin tones and hair that grew in various colors. Their eyes held an intensity she hadn't seen in other species. Humans, she remembered from her briefings, a young species that had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. They had requested to attend the summit despite being newcomers to galactic politics. Most delegates had laughed at the idea of including such a primitive race in important discussions. Princess Lyrelay tried once more to call for help as the human delegation passed. Her voice was nothing but a whisper now, barely audible even to herself. The humans walked by just like all the others had. But then one of them stopped. He was average height for his species, with brown skin and kind eyes that seemed to see everything. While the other humans continued toward the main assembly hall, he turned back and knelt beside her. "I hear you," he said softly in perfect Zephyrian, his pronunciation flawless despite the complex melodic tones required. "You're hurt." Princess Lyrelay stared up at him in shock. Not only had he stopped, but he had spoken her native language with the skill of a master linguist. Tears formed in her eyes as hope flickered for the first time in hours. "My name is Marcus Chen," the human continued, gently examining her wounds without touching her inappropriately. "I'm a xenolinguist and cultural ambassador. You've been poisoned with crimson venom, haven't you? I can smell the metallic scent." She nodded weakly, amazed that he recognized the rare toxin. Crimson venom was designed specifically to target Zephyrian physiology. How could this human possibly know about it? Marcus reached into his diplomatic pouch and withdrew a small medical scanner. The device hummed as it analyzed her condition. His expression grew grave as he read the results. "The poison has reached critical saturation," he said, switching to Standard Galactic so she could conserve her strength. "You have maybe an hour before it reaches your primary heart chamber. But I can help you." "Why?" she managed to whisper. "Everyone else. They just walked away." Marcus met her eyes directly, something that was considered deeply personal among Zephyrians. "Because where I come from, we don't leave people to suffer alone. It doesn't matter who you are or where you're from. If you're hurt, we help." He activated his communication device. "Medical emergency in the East Corridor. We need a trauma team immediately. Priority 1. While they waited for medical assistance, Marcus carefully moved her to a more comfortable position against the pillar. He spoke to her in soothing tones, explaining what the medical team would do and how the antidote worked. His knowledge of Zephyrian biology was surprisingly extensive for a member of such a young species. "How do you know so much about my people?" Princess Lyrelay asked. "I've studied every known language and culture in the galaxy," Marcus replied. "It's what I do. Humans believe that understanding each other is the first step toward peace." The medical team arrived within minutes, led by Dr. Sarah Kim, another human. Princess Lyrelay watched in amazement as the human medical staff worked with efficiency and skill that rivaled the best doctors in the galaxy. They administered the antidote and began treating her other injuries with gentle care. "You're going to be fine," Dr. Kim assured her. "The antidote will neutralize the poison within the next few hours. You'll need rest, but you'll make a full recovery." As the immediate crisis passed, Princess Lyrelay realized something remarkable had happened. In her darkest moment, when her own people's allies had abandoned her, it was the humans who had shown compassion. These supposedly primitive beings had risked their diplomatic standing by intervening in what could have been seen as internal Zephyrian affairs. "Why didn't the others help me?" she asked Marcus as the medical team finished their work. Marcus considered his answer carefully. "I think they were afraid. Fear makes people walk past suffering even when they know it's wrong. But humans, we've learned that the only way to overcome fear is by choosing to care anyway." News of the attack spread quickly through the palace. When Emperor Zakthul, Princess Lyrelay's father, arrived with his royal guard, his relief at finding his daughter alive was overwhelming. But his gratitude toward the humans was even more powerful. "You have saved, not just my daughter, but the future of our empire," the Emperor told Marcus and his team. "How can we ever repay such a debt?" "No debt is needed," Marcus replied. "We did what anyone should do." But Emperor Zakthul knew better. He had witnessed the other delegates walking past his dying daughter. He understood that the humans possessed something rare and precious in the galaxy, genuine compassion for strangers. As Princess Lyrelay recovered in the medical bay, she reflected on what had happened. The peace summit would continue, but something fundamental had changed. The humans had proven themselves to be more than just another species seeking recognition. They were potential allies who valued life itself over political convenience. She made a decision that would alter the course of galactic history. When she addressed the summit the next day, she would not just speak about trade agreements and territorial boundaries. She would tell every delegate about the species that stopped when others walked away, the people who whispered, "I hear you," when the galaxy had gone deaf to suffering. The attack on Princess Lyreley had been meant to destabilize the peace process. Instead, it had revealed something extraordinary about humanity that would change everything. The youngest species in the galaxy had just demonstrated the oldest and most powerful force in the universe, the simple act of caring for a stranger in need. Marcus remained by her bedside through the night, ensuring she had everything she needed for a comfortable recovery. They talked about their respective worlds, sharing stories and dreams for the future. Princess Lyreley found herself fascinated by this species that seemed to carry hope like a flame even in the darkest times. As dawn broke over the Crystal Palace, casting rainbow patterns across the walls, she knew that the real summit was just beginning. The formal negotiations would determine trade routes and territorial boundaries. But the conversation she was having with Marcus would determine something far more important: whether the galaxy would choose to become a place where no one suffered alone. The poison was leaving her system, but something else was taking its place. For the first time in her life, Princess Lyreley believed that peace between the stars wasn't just a diplomatic dream. It was a possibility worth fighting for, one act of compassion at a time. The Grand Assembly Hall buzzed with tension as delegates from across the galaxy took their seats for the emergency session. News of the assassination attempt had spread like wildfire, and whispers filled the air about who might be responsible. Princess Lyreley stood at the central podium, her recovery remarkable enough that even the most skeptical observers had to admire human medical expertise. She wore the formal robes of her office, but the bandages beneath served as a stark reminder of the previous night's events. The silver threading in her garments caught the light as she prepared to address the assembly. Every major species in the galaxy was represented in this hall, from the ancient Vanguard Council to the newest member civilizations. "Esteemed delegates," Princess Lyreley began, her voice carrying clearly through the translation devices. "Yesterday, I was left to die in a corridor of this very palace. Many of you walked past me as I called for help." An uncomfortable silence settled over the assembly. The Altarian delegation shifted in their seats, their blue skin darkening with what their species considered embarrassment. The Quartzians' crystalline bodies produced discordant notes as they recognized themselves in her words. "I do not speak to shame you," the princess continued. "Fear is a powerful force. When violence strikes, our first instinct is often to protect ourselves and our own interests. But I want to tell you about a species that chose differently." She gestured toward the human delegation, seated in a modest section usually reserved for observer species. Marcus Chen sat with his colleagues, their simple clothing and humble positioning a stark contrast to the elaborate displays of power shown by other empires. "The humans found me when others did not. They healed me when others could not. They stayed with me when others would not. These beings, whom many of you consider primitive, demonstrated something that our advanced civilizations seem to have forgotten: the simple power of compassion." Emperor Zakthul watched from the royal viewing box, his expression unreadable. He had ruled the Zephyrian Empire for 3 centuries, navigating countless political crises and diplomatic challenges. But his daughter's words were about to reshape everything he thought he knew about galactic politics. Princess Lyreley activated a holographic display showing casualty reports from the ongoing conflicts across the galaxy. The numbers were staggering: billions of beings dead, entire star systems rendered uninhabitable, refugee fleets wandering through space seeking homes that no longer existed. "For decades, we have gathered for summits like this one," she said. "We negotiate treaties, establish boundaries, and promise peace. Yet the killing continues. Why? Because we have forgotten how to see each other as more than obstacles to our goals." Ambassador Thex Nari of the Serpentine Confederation rose from his seat, his scales reflecting the hall's lights in angry patterns. Your Highness speaks of compassion, but the humans have no stake in our conflicts. It is easy to show kindness when you have nothing to lose. Marcus Chen requested permission to respond. The princess nodded, and he approached the speaking platform with calm confidence. Ambassador Thexanari raises an important point, Marcus said. Humanity is indeed new to your conflicts, but we are not new to suffering. Our own world has known war, genocide, and devastation. We nearly destroyed ourselves before we learned to reach for the stars. He activated his own holographic display, showing images of Earth's history, wars, natural disasters, moments of terrible darkness. But interwoven with these scenes were others, humans helping strangers, sacrificing for each other, choosing hope over despair. We learned something important during our darkest times, Marcus continued. The only way to truly win is to refuse to let others lose everything. Every being that suffers diminishes us all. Every act of compassion makes us stronger. The Quartzian delegate produced a questioning tone that translated as skepticism. Beautiful words, human, but what do you propose? Our species have biological and cultural differences that span millions of years of evolution. Some conflicts cannot be resolved with simple kindness. Dr. Sarah Kim joined Marcus at the podium. You're right about our differences, she said. But those differences are also our greatest strength. Each species has developed unique solutions to universal problems. The Zephyrians mastered energy manipulation. The Altarians perfected sustainable agriculture. The Quartzians created art forms that heal psychological trauma. She gestured toward the assembled delegates. Imagine what we could accomplish if we shared these gifts instead of hoarding them. Humanity offers something different. We specialize in building bridges between incompatible systems. Princess Lyrelai watched the assembly's reaction with growing excitement. The humans were doing something she had never seen in diplomatic negotiations. They were appealing to hope rather than fear. The human proposal is interesting in theory, admitted Counselor Veltar of the ancient vanguard species. But implementation requires trust. How do we know they will not simply exploit our knowledge for their own advancement? Marcus smiled, and something in his expression reminded Princess Lyrelai of the moment he had knelt beside her and said, I hear you. It was the look of someone who genuinely cared about the answer. Because, Marcus said, we're going to prove it, right here, right now. He nodded to his colleagues, who began distributing data tablets to every delegation in the hall. The devices contained detailed information that made the alien delegates gasp in astonishment. These tablets contain humanity's complete technological database, Marcus explained. Our medical knowledge, our engineering techniques, our agricultural methods, our cultural archives, everything we've learned in our short time among the stars. We're giving it to you freely with no conditions. The hall erupted in shocked murmurs. Ambassador Thexanari stared at his tablet in disbelief. This includes your faster-than-light technology, your defensive systems, even your military capabilities. You realize this knowledge could be used against you? Yes, Dr. Kim replied simply. That's the point. We're showing you that trust has to start somewhere. We choose to start with us. Princess Lyrelai felt a chill of excitement run through her body. The humans weren't just proposing a new approach to diplomacy, they were demonstrating it. They were making themselves vulnerable to prove their sincerity. Emperor Zakthul stood in his viewing box. The session is adjourned for deliberation, he announced. We will reconvene in 6 hours to discuss this. Unprecedented offer. As the delegates filed out of the hall, Princess Lyrelai approached the human delegation. What you just did, she said quietly, was either the bravest or most foolish act in diplomatic history. Maybe both, Marcus admitted. But sitting safely behind walls while others suffer isn't really living. We'd rather risk everything for the chance to build something better. During the recess, Princess Lyrelay walked through the palace corridors, observing how different species were reacting to the human gesture. She found Quartzian delegates analyzing human art forms with fascination. Altarian scientists were already discussing how human agricultural techniques could help feed refugee populations. Even the usually suspicious Saurian military advisors were impressed by the elegance of human defensive strategies. But it was what she overheard in a quiet alcove that truly amazed her. Two young serpentine diplomats were speaking in hushed tones. "Did you see the medical procedures they used to save the princess?" one was saying. "Our own physicians said such poison was always fatal." "The humans didn't just save her life," the other replied. "They gave us hope that maybe our own wounded can be healed too." Princess Lyrelay realized that something fundamental was shifting in the palace. For the first time in decades, beings from different species were talking about possibilities instead of limitations. The human gift of knowledge was less important than the human example of trust. When the assembly reconvened, the atmosphere had changed completely. Delegate after delegate rose to speak about specific collaborations they wanted to pursue with the humans. The Vanguard Council offered to share their historical archives. The Quartzians proposed joint artistic projects. Even Ambassador Thexnari announced that the Serpentine Confederation would provide advanced materials science in exchange for human medical techniques. But Princess Lyrelay knew the real transformation was deeper than trade agreements. By choosing to trust first, the humans had given every other species permission to do the same. As the session concluded, she made an announcement that would echo through galactic history. "I propose that we establish a new institution, the Galactic Compassion Corps. Its mission will be simple, to ensure that no being suffers alone, regardless of species or politics." The vote was unanimous. For the first time in the galaxy's recorded history, every major species agreed on something without a single dissenting voice. Standing at the podium where hours earlier she had been just another injured victim, Princess Lyrelay looked out at an assembly that had been transformed by a simple human truth: that the strongest bridges are built not from stone or steel, but from the choice to care about strangers. The real summit had begun not with negotiations, but with 3 words whispered in a corridor: "I hear you." Everything that followed was just the galaxy learning to say those words back. 5 years had passed since the summit that changed everything. Princess Lyrelay, now Queen Lyrelay after her father's peaceful abdication, stood on the observation deck of the Compassion Corps flagship Unity's Voice. Through the massive viewport, she watched the most remarkable sight in galactic history: a joint rescue operation involving ships from 12 different species working together to evacuate civilians from a war-torn moon. The evacuation wasn't happening because of treaties or trade agreements. It was happening because beings across the galaxy had learned to hear each other's cries for help. "Your Majesty," called Captain Torres, the human officer commanding the bridge, "we're receiving distress signals from the Kepler mining colony. Solar flares have damaged their life support systems. 2,000 beings need immediate evacuation." Queen Lyrelay nodded. "Dispatch the nearest Compassion Corps vessels." Standard humanitarian protocol. She watched as ships from 6 different species changed course toward Kepler without hesitation. Altarian medical vessels with their advanced life support capabilities, Quartzian transport ships whose crystalline hulls could protect against radiation, Saurian engineering vessels equipped to repair damaged systems, and human coordination craft to manage the complex operation. 5 years ago, such cooperation would have been impossible. Each species would have demanded payment, territorial concessions, or political favors before rendering aid. Now they responded because someone was in trouble, and that was reason enough. Marcus Chen approached from the communications station, now wearing the uniform of the Compassion Corps director. "The evacuation is proceeding smoothly," he reported. But we have a bigger problem. Long-range sensors are detecting an unidentified vessel approaching the restricted Nexus system. The Nexus system held special significance for the Compassion Corps. It was there they had established their headquarters, not on any single species homeworld, but on a previously uninhabited planet they called Haven. The world had become a symbol of what the galaxy could achieve when species worked together rather than against each other. "Can you identify the vessel?" Queen Lyreley asked. "It's using technology we've never encountered," Marcus replied. "The ship is massive, easily 10 times larger than our biggest cruiser, and it's heading directly for Haven." Queen Lyreley felt a familiar chill. The galaxy had been at peace for 5 years, but she knew that peace was always fragile. Whoever was approaching Haven might not share the Compassion Corps' values. "Alert all member worlds," she ordered. "But remember protocol. We approach with open hands, not closed fists." The journey to Haven took 18 hours, even at maximum faster than light speed. During the trip, Queen Lyreley walked through the Unity's voice, observing how different species had learned to live and work together. In the medical bay, human doctors trained alongside Zephyrian healers and Altarian biologists. The engineering sections buzzed with collaborative projects between Saurian technicians and Quartzian artists, creating beautiful yet functional systems. This ship, like the Compassion Corps itself, had become something entirely new, not just a combination of different technologies, but a fusion of different ways of thinking about problems. When they arrived at Haven, Queen Lyreley gasped at the sight of the mysterious vessel. It was unlike anything in their databases, smooth and organic-looking, as if it had been grown rather than built. Its surface rippled with colors that suggested intelligence and beauty far beyond current galactic standards. "They're hailing us," reported Lieutenant Commander Zixka, a young Serpentine officer who had joined the Corps after seeing how they helped refugee populations. "The signal is strange. It's not using any known communication protocol." "Put it through," Queen Lyreley ordered. The main screen flickered, then displayed an image that made everyone on the bridge step backward in awe. The being addressing them was clearly ancient, with features that seemed to combine elements from every known species in the galaxy. Its eyes held the depth of someone who had witnessed the birth and death of stars. "I am Elder Voxthani of the predecessor civilization," the being spoke, its voice somehow heard in perfect translation by every species on the bridge. "We have been watching your young galaxy for millennia, waiting to see if you would learn wisdom or destroy yourselves." Queen Lyreley stepped forward, drawing on all her diplomatic training. "Welcome, Elder Voxthani. I am Queen Lyreley of the Compassion Corps. How can we help you?" The ancient being's expression showed surprise, then what might have been amusement. "You ask how you can help us? Interesting. Most civilizations would ask what we want from them." "The Compassion Corps exists to serve all beings," Marcus explained, joining the Queen at the communication station. "If you need assistance, we're here to provide it." Elder Voxthani leaned forward, studying the diverse crew on the Unity's voice bridge. 5 years ago, we detected something unprecedented in this galaxy, a summit where species chose cooperation over competition, trust over fear. We came to investigate whether this change was genuine or merely political theater. "What did you discover?" Queen Lyreley asked. "We have been observing your actions since the summit," Elder Voxthani replied. "We watched you establish the Compassion Corps. We saw you evacuate entire populations from natural disasters without asking for payment. We witnessed former enemies working together to explore new worlds and heal old wounds." The ancient being gestured, and the screen displayed images from across the galaxy. Compassion Corps vessels rescuing stranded travelers, mixed species research teams making scientific breakthroughs, former war zones transformed into peaceful trading centers. But the test we needed to see was simpler than all of these accomplishments, Elder Voxthani continued. We needed to see what you would do when faced with the unknown. With us. Queen Laerily felt her heart racing as she understood the implications. You were testing whether we would react with fear or with welcome. Indeed. And your first words were, "How can we help you?" This confirms what we hoped to find. A civilization that has learned the most important lesson in the universe. Which is? Marcus asked. Elder Voxthani smiled, an expression that seemed to light up the ancient features. That true strength comes not from conquering others, but from lifting them up. Your species, humans, taught this to the galaxy when one of you knelt beside an injured stranger and said, "I hear you." That moment changed everything. The being gestured again, and the screen showed images of the predecessor civilization, vast cities built among the stars, technologies that seemed like magic, art forms that made the soul sing just by viewing them. We are the last of an ancient civilization, Elder Voxthani explained. We achieved great power, built wonders that spanned galaxies, commanded forces that could reshape reality itself. But we forgot the lesson your young galaxy has learned, that wisdom means caring for those who cannot care for themselves. What happened to your people? Queen Laerily asked gently. We became so powerful that we stopped seeing other beings as equals. We treated younger civilizations as children to be guided rather than partners to be respected. Eventually, we were alone among the stars, surrounded by technology but empty of the connections that make life meaningful. Elder Voxthani stood, and Queen Laerily could see the weight of eons in the ancient being's movements. We have lived for millions of years with the consequences of our arrogance, the elder continued. But in watching your galaxy transform itself through compassion, we have learned that it is never too late to choose a different path. Are you asking to join the Compassion Corps? Marcus asked, hardly daring to believe it. We are asking for something more difficult than membership, Elder Voxthani replied. We are asking to be taught, to learn from civilizations we once would have dismissed as primitive. To discover whether beings like us, who have forgotten how to hear others' pain, can remember how to care. Queen Laerily looked around the bridge at her diverse crew. Humans and Zephyrians, Altarians and Quartzians, Saurians and Serpentines, all working together as naturally as if they had always been one people. 5 years ago, such cooperation would have been impossible. Today, it was simply how things worked. Elder Voxthani, she said formally, the Compassion Corps exists to ensure that no being suffers alone. That includes beings who suffer from loneliness, isolation, or the burden of old mistakes. If you truly wish to learn, we will teach you. If you need help remembering how to care, we will show you. The ancient being's eyes filled with something that looked remarkably like tears. We offer you the knowledge of our civilization, technologies beyond your current understanding, scientific discoveries that could advance your species by millions of years. But we ask for something more precious in return. What's that? Queen Laerily asked. Show us how to whisper, "I hear you," to a suffering stranger. Teach us what your species taught this galaxy, that the greatest power in the universe is not the ability to destroy, but the choice to heal. As Elder Voxthani's ship took up position alongside the Compassion Corps fleet, Queen Laerily reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. It had started with one human refusing to walk past an injured princess. It had continued with that same species choosing trust over fear, cooperation over competition. Now, the ripples of that choice had reached across the galaxy to touch a civilization older than stars, showing them that wisdom wasn't about accumulating power. It was about choosing to use that power to lift others up. Standing on the bridge of Unity's voice, surrounded by beings from across the galaxy and beyond, Queen Lirelei understood that they were witnessing the birth of something unprecedented, a truly galactic civilization built not on conquest or dominance, but on the simple recognition that every being's suffering mattered. The universe was vast and often cruel, but it was also full of possibilities for those brave enough to whisper, "I hear you," to strangers in the dark. And sometimes, if you listened carefully enough, the universe whispered back. The Compassion Corps had begun with one act of kindness in a palace corridor. Now it was becoming something that could change not just a galaxy, but the very meaning of what it meant to be civilized among the stars. In the end, the greatest human characteristic wasn't their technology, or their courage, or their intelligence. It was their stubborn insistence that no one should suffer alone, and their willingness to prove it by kneeling beside strangers and offering help without asking for anything in return.